This is one of the more straightforward poems on the CSEC syllabus. Really nothing too complicated is happening here. Still, let's go line by line and make sure we have a complete understanding of the poem. Welcome back to Between the Lines. As usual, we'll start by reading the poem. Test Match Sabina Park. Proudly wearing the rosette of my skin, I strut into Sabina. England boycotting excitement bravely, something badly amiss. Cricket, not the game they play at Lord's. The crowd, whoever saw a crowd at a cricket match, are caged vociferous partisans, quick to take offence. England 68 for none at lunch. What sort of batting that, man? Them can't play cricket again. Perhaps them should have borrowed Lawrence Rowe. And on it goes, the wicket slow as the batting and the crowd restless. Hey white boy, or your brothers them does send we sleep so? Me pay me money to watch this foolishness? Cha. So I try to explain in my Hampshire drawl about the conditions in Kent, about sticky wickets and muggy days, and the monsoon season in Manchester, but fail to convince even myself. The crowd's loud busing drives me out, skulking behind a tarnished rosette, somewhat frayed now, but unable quite to conceal a blushing nationality. So, to summarize what is happening here, we see a cricket match happening at Sabina Park between England and the West Indies. For those who don't know or care about cricket, Test cricket is basically the highest standard, the highest league of cricket that exists. Sabina Park Stadium is located in Jamaica and is the only place in the country where Test cricket is played. Anyhow, the speaker here is an Englishman, a white man, and he is here in Jamaica watching the cricket match, supporting his English team, of course. Immediately, the poem is juxtaposing two cultures that are very much connected historically. We see England, we see Jamaica. In a sense, Jamaica here may represent the West Indies in general. We also see a radical juxtaposition with the white man and the English team on one hand, and the West Indian, particularly the Jamaican spectators, alongside the West Indian team on the other hand. We have studied several poems that deal with race so far, particularly black versus white. But this poem is a little different. For one, instead of the black people being the ones at a disadvantage, the ones under the oppression, as we usually see, it is this white man who is feeling out of place, embarrassed, ashamed. So this poem is giving us a flip side to the racial tensions that other poems explore. However, be careful not to overanalyze the racial aspect of the poem, as nationality is as important a theme as race here. It is not just black versus white, but also England versus Jamaica, or England versus the West Indies. Anyway, what's literally happening in the poem? Of course, a cricket match. We see that the English team is playing a very boring match. They're not exciting the crowd. And they're not as thrilling to watch as other teams, particularly the West Indian team. The English team are the ones batting now, so it's up to them to make the match exciting. But instead of playing a wild, exciting game that makes the crowd scream and pulsate at the edge of their seats, they're playing a very safe game. They're not going all out with the batting. The game is slow and uninteresting, and that makes the crowd restless, uneasy, displeased. A West Indian spectator, perhaps a Jamaican, considering the dialect he uses, confronts the main speaker, the white man, asking why the English team is so lame. The white man at this is embarrassed and cannot find a good answer. He too realizes that the team isn't really doing a great job. The Englishman who had walked into the stadium all high and mighty ended up walking out ashamed, wanting even to hide his whiteness in shame. Alright, that's the summary. Now let's go line by line and look at the diction and devices and see how other themes might shine through this poem. We already understand the title. It presents the setting, the context of the poem. It is almost like a newspaper headline. It lets us know what we're getting into. There's a test match happening at Sabina Park. Let's head down to stanza 1. In the first two lines, we are met with a tone of arrogance. The speaker in line 1 proudly wears the rosette of his skin as he struts into Sabina. This white man is entering the stadium feeling quite proud. A rosette is an imitation rose that is typically worn as some kind of badge of honor. People who are important or accomplished might be given a rosette. This man's rosette is his white skin, his whiteness, and so we have a metaphor as his race is compared to a rosette. He is very much aware and very much pleased with his white privilege. It's not so much that his team is better than the West Indian team, but that his skin is better than the West Indian skin. I could go into the long history between England and the West Indies, but we all know, even without looking into history, that white privilege is a thing, and that black people are often discriminated against and seen as less than just because of our race. In line 2, the speaker is said to strut, which again connotes an air of superiority, pride. Strutting is that proud, stiff upward walk, one that might remind you of a peacock that walks with its tail erect and spread out. This man struts into Sabina like he owns the place. By the next line of the stanza, we see that the speaker's pompous behavior isn't matched by his team's performance. England boycotting excitement bravely. To boycott means to abstain from using or buying or doing a certain thing, usually as a form of protest. It's often used in the sense of businesses and organizations, but I'll soon explain why this word is brought into the world of sports. Anyway, England boycotting excitement is a sarcastic way of saying they're not playing an exciting game. The speaker still calls the team brave. This description is ironic or sarcastic, as in reality, the English team are cowardly. They aren't brave enough to play a riskier, more thrilling game. They're playing it too safe, and the game is no fun to watch. So the speaker is just denying the truth and trying to feel good about his team. In line 4 here, the speaker admits very clearly that something is off. Something is badly amiss. He might be saying his team isn't doing as well as they usually do. He might also be saying that the crowd here in Jamaica is not responding as positively to the game as he would have expected. In any case, he realizes that something is going wrong. I think the speaker here is experiencing a kind of culture shock. It's his first time seeing a West Indian crowd, a people that are seeking not just a technically good game, but an exciting game, a wild game, a memorable game. Maybe back in England, the spectators have different expectations. And this ties somewhat into some cultural differences between the West Indies and England, or at the very least, some stereotypes. West Indians are often seen as loud, charismatic, over-friendly people who just like to party and enjoy life. English people are painted to be very much reserved and collected. They drink tea, study hard, cross their legs, smoke pipes. This white man, as he struts into Sabina Park, is thrown into a different world, one that neither he nor his team fit into. Back to the word boycott. Earlier I mentioned that this word stands out. It is used deliberately to capture a pun and to make an allusion. Jeff Boycott is an English cricketer, one of the cricketers who were performing poorly apparently. You know who else is an English cricketer? Dennis Amiss. So these two words are used to make a skillful joke about two English cricketers who might have performed particularly poorly. On to stanza 2. Cricket, not the game they play at Lord's. The speaker realizes unmistakably that there's a significant difference between the cricket played here in the West Indies and the cricket played back in England. Lord's alludes to Lord's Cricket Ground in London, where the speaker might have watched cricket matches before. Also, a lord interestingly means a master, a man in a high position. So it could be a pun that also means that the speaker sees England as the land of lords, the land of great men. Cricket, not the game they play at Lord's. This is a critical line. The speaker is having an epiphany. It's like he's saying, the cricket played here at Sabina is the real cricket. What have I been watching my whole life? Look at that one-word sentence. Cricket. He's saying, these people know what cricket is, or what cricket should be. He realizes that compared to what goes on at Sabina, what happens at Lord's is a disgrace. The flamboyance and showmanship of the West Indian cricketers contrast with the dull, listless playing style of the English. Furthermore, the expressiveness of the West Indian spectators contrasts with how prim, proper and quiet the English spectators at Lord's would typically be. You know what makes this line even more significant? The fact that Englishmen actually invented cricket. So this game that this white man's people invented has now been transformed into something much greater by the West Indians. In essence, the English are literally being beaten at their own game. Then he takes note of the crowd. He might be gazing about at the loud and numerous spectators, amazed. He reflects through a rhetorical question on the fact that he has never actually seen a crowd this big at a cricket match. He's surprised that cricket is such a big deal here. Look at how he describes the crowd. Caged, vociferous partisans, quick to take offense. Vociferous means loud, boisterous, noisy. A partisan is an ardent supporter of some kind of political party. In this case, we have a bit of a metaphor, as the West Indies are said to support their team as militantly, as seriously, as partisans support their political party. Basically, the man is seeing how loyal the West Indians are to their team, how fierce their support is for their team. They love their team so much that they quickly take offense if anything happens to their players out on the pitch, or if anyone tries to trash talk their team. They are ready to curse and fight for their team. The speaker has never seen such a passion for cricket back home. Later, we will see that quick to take offense is a little ironic, as in the end, it is the speaker who takes offense when his team plays poorly, and when the West Indians mock and jeer him. He takes offense to the extent that he leaves the match early. You'll see when we get there. Why is the crowd said to be caged? The cage must refer to the iron railings or bars that run around the stadium. The crowd look as if they would just stampede down onto the cricket grounds had it not been for the railings. This is how loud and boisterous they are. By the way, saying the crowd is caged can be seen as a metaphor that compares the people to wild animals. Usually, it is beasts that are kept in cages. By now, you must have seen that the speaker's tone has changed. First, he was proud and condescending. Now, there's a tone of bewilderment and a kind of admiration. The speaker is seeing for the first time how cricket is enjoyed at Sabina Park. The passion and excitement that the West Indians have are missing from the games back in England. There's also a tone of self-consciousness, insecurity. In the next stanza, we get a look at the scoreboard. England 68 for none at lunch. So at lunchtime, the score is pretty low. England have made 68 runs and have lost 0 wickets. The low numbers indicate that the batsmen aren't playing a thrilling game. They've just made 68 runs so far. The Jamaican speaker then comes in, what sort of batting that man? Rhetorically, he asks the Englishman what kind of batting his team is going on with. The tone of the Jamaican here is one of frustration and disapproval, one of disappointment. The Jamaican, well, I think he's Jamaican, continues, them can't play cricket again. So apparently England used to be a good team, but now they can't play a good game. And the Jamaican goes further still. Perhaps them should have borrowed Lawrence Rowe. He's saying, kind of jokingly, the English team would have done a better job had they borrowed the Jamaican batsman, Lawrence Rowe, who was an incredible batsman. So here we have an allusion, as another real-life cricketer is mentioned. The Jamaican is sarcastic in these lines and is mocking the unimpressive play of the English team. Note the shift in language as the speaker changes. We started off with the Englishman speaking in standard English. He even uses impressive words like strut and vociferous. Now we have the Jamaican Creole coming in to create a contrast. Everything about the original speaker, his team, his race, now even his standard English, have become a mockery. The next 2 lines, as we reach stanza 4, are narrated by the original speaker, the white man. He becomes increasingly anxious and embarrassed as the game continues in a slow, boring manner. The wickets are slow because the English batsmen are so defensive and careful that no wickets are being lost. But also, they're not making many runs, and so the game is grindingly sluggish, almost to a halt. The crowd is becoming even more restless. Then we have some more banter from our Jamaican friend. He's talking directly to the white man, saying that his brothers who are the English batsmen, are sending the spectators to sleep with their unexciting play style. He uses a rhetorical question which comes laced with more sarcasm. "Hey white boy, how your brothers them just send me sleep so?" Then another rhetorical question comes in like a punch. "Me pay me money to watch this foolishness." The Jamaican is saying that coming to the stadium was a waste of money, as the match is just too boring. He ends with the very Jamaican "cho," which is an interjection of exasperation. Let's see the Englishman's response in the next stanza. So I try to explain in my Hampshire drawl about the conditions in Kent, about sticky wickets and muggy days and the monsoon season in Manchester, but fail to convince even myself. The Hampshire drawl in the first line refers to the speaker's accent. He's from Hampshire, England. When it comes to speech, a drawl is usually a slow, drawn-out kind of accent. So just as the English cricketers are slow in their batting, the Englishman's speech seems to be dull and unexciting compared to the Jamaican dialect. What is he saying in his Hampshire drawl? In trying to explain away why the English team is playing such a horrible game, he talks about the conditions in Kent, which is in England. He talks about sticky wickets and muggy days. Muggy means hot, humid, wet, and sticky gives us the same image. So he's saying, my team is only playing badly because back home in England, the weather is much different. We're not used to this tropical weather. We're used to much wetter weather, and that is affecting the batsmen. Sticky wicket refers to when the cricket pitch becomes wet due to rain. This wetness causes the ball to bounce unpredictably and could cause batsmen to become more nervous and more careful, and therefore play a less exciting game. So he's saying, we are used to playing like this because back home, the weather forces us to play like this. But there's a nice little pun here. A sticky wicket idiomatically means a difficult or unpredictable situation. So even though the cricket pitch isn't wet, the speaker himself is facing a sticky wicket because he's being heavily criticized and mocked by the West Indians around him. And he's very embarrassed. The speaker even talks about the monsoon season in Manchester, which is in England. But the funny thing is, there is no monsoon season in England. The monsoon season, which is a time of incessant heavy rain, is faced by South Asia, India, and some parts of South America. I guess the speaker assumes that the Jamaicans, the West Indians around him, don't know enough about England and about the world to pick up on his lie. Basically, he thinks we're not sensible enough to understand that he's actually not making sense. Anyhow, by the time we get to the last line of the stanza, we see that neither the Jamaicans nor the speaker himself is convinced. Meaning, all this talk about wet weather and monsoon did not have any effect on the frustrated, mocking crowd, on the Caribbean people who are in a heated and caustic conversation with him. He himself is unconvinced, which means he knows that weather has nothing to do with how badly the Englishmen are playing. Look what happens in the last stanza. The Englishman says that the crowd's loud busing drives him out. Let's pause there and pay close attention to the diction. Notice that for the first time, the Englishman is using truncated or contracted English. First, his English was prim and proper. Now he says busing instead of abusing. His English is now broken, just as his English pride has been broken. In the battle of West Indies and England, we have been having a secondary battle of English and Caribbean dialect. Now even the Englishman is using broken English, which shows that he has given up. He can no longer defend or be proud of the English team. It's as if he wants to walk out of his skin and switch sides. He says that the crowd is abusing him. This is because of the jeering, and we can imagine the cussing that the West Indian spectators carry on with. They're lashing out not just against the English team, but on him, an Englishman who, in a sense, represents that team. Look at the word drive, such a forceful word. To drive someone out of somewhere is to chase them out brusquely, like they're some kind of animal. First, the West Indians were compared to animals. Now the Englishman is compared to an animal. The tables have turned. We can now feel sorry for the Englishman. He's being driven out of Sabina Park, not quite by the crowd, but more by his shame, his embarrassment, his disappointment in the English team. We see in the next line that he is skulking, which means he's trying to hide himself, trying to evade interaction. He doesn't want to talk to the West Indian spectators around him. He wants to disappear. And again, we see the metaphor of the rosette. But this time, the rosette is tarnished, it is soiled, ruined. His whiteness, his Englishness, is no longer something he wears as a badge of honor, but is now a dirt garment he wears shamefully. Clearly, he is now ashamed of his whiteness, his Englishness, his affiliation with the English cricket team. He says in the next line that he is afraid. Wait, is he afraid or is the rosette afraid? Well, it doesn't matter. To be afraid means to be unraveled, torn up, scattered, messed up. We can imagine that the rosette, which was once beautiful, which is his race, his nationality, is now dirty and messy. In the same light, he is afraid. He is in a state of embarrassment. In the last two lines, we see that despite his effort, he cannot conceal, he cannot hide his nationality. Why can't he hide it? Because being white isn't something he can hide. Not when you're in a crowd full of black people. He wishes he could take off his whiteness and just blend in. But he cannot. The blushing here speaks to his embarrassment. Someone blushes and turns red in the cheeks when they're embarrassed. It is easier to see a white man blushing than a black man blushing. Even if we blush, it might not be so noticeable. But this man's whiteness makes the redness of the blushing very conspicuous. What a change the speaker has undergone. He strutted into the stadium all high and mighty, and now he's driven out with his tail between his legs. In this poem, the theme of race and racial pride are explored, as well as nationality and national pride, patriotism in fact. But in the poem, unlike in most others we looked at, we see where the whiteness, the white privilege, ends up backfiring and turning into a colossal embarrassment. We see the theme of contrasting cultures as we explore the differences between how English people and how West Indians speak and behave, particularly in the context of watching a cricket match. Another thing, do you think the black people in the poem were being racist toward the white man? Look at how they talk to him. Look at how they abuse him and even call him white boy. Is this racist? In fact, can black people be racist? Definitely let me know your thoughts on that one in the comments. Another theme we see in the poem is how sports, in this case cricket, is used as an equalizer, a leveler among races. Meaning, whether or not you think your race is superior to mine in the outside world, whether or not I am racially prejudiced in the outside world, in the game of cricket, it's all about the skills of the players. Your race gives you no advantage, no disadvantage. All races are equal on the cricket pitch. In another video where I deal with all the themes explored in all of the CSEC poems, I'll go more deeply into the themes of this poem. Until then, that's it for Test Match Sabina Park. Thank you for joining us in Between the Lines.